Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Dr. James J. Fetterman, a proud choral music teacher from Accomack County located on the beautiful Eastern Shore, currently serving as president of the Virginia Education Association. I stand before you today representing more than 40,000 VEA members throughout our great Commonwealth. We are here today for a simple reason: to put Governor Youngkin on notice that we will not stand idly by while he and his administration attempt to roll back the recent progress we've made in teaching honest and culturally competent lessons in Virginia public schools for blatant political gain. As we have witnessed from a recent statewide survey of Virginians conducted by a reputable CNU Watson Center, 57% of Virginia voters oppose a ban on teaching of critical race theory in public schools, and a whopping 63% support teaching how racism continues to impact American history. From his legally dubious executive order to his ridiculous and insulting educator snitch line, it is clear to all of us that Governor Youngkin is attempting to exploit the fear of a small group of parents in order to advance his politically motivated agenda. As educators, advocates, parents, and clergy, we cannot allow these assertions to go unchallenged. The group of people you see around me are representatives of diverse organizations from across Virginia, all united by deep concern that in his politically charged and incredibly misguided attempt to root out divisive concepts from our classrooms, Governor Youngkin is imperiling the very students he claims to be helping. You will hear from several speakers today, all talking about the importance of honesty in education, why culturally informed education is critical to the success of our students and our communities, and the moral and legal imperatives we must continue in order to provide a historically accurate and culturally informed education to all students in the Commonwealth. If ever there was a time to draw a line in the sand, now is that moment. At this time, I would like to introduce Youngkin Cooper from Virginia Excels to explain the importance of why we stand on the Capitol grounds and step away from the statue of Barbara Johns and what it has to do with our current situation. Youngkin.
Good morning again. Thank you, Dr. Fetterman. My name is Youngkin Cooper, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Executive Director of Virginia Excels. We develop and amplify new voices around educational equity. But I want to tell you something that's a little bit more personal today. I'm a native of Prince Edward County, and I'm a graduate of the same school system that Barbara Johns led the walkout in 1951. So we stand here today on hollow ground. And during my tenure at Prince Edward County Public Schools, we had a similar conversation. When I was 10 or 11 years old, sitting in my mom's office one summer day, and my mom runs a low-income housing community, and she's done that for 39 years this year. But a gentleman came in, and my mom was working with another client. He said, "Hey, nephew, can you please read this paper to me? I left my glasses at home." So I read it to the best of my ability, and he looked really confused. He said, "So what does that mean?" And it was a letter from Social Security Administration. And I explained it to the best of my 10 or 11-year-old ability. And he said, "Thank you." And that evening when he left, I remember asking my mom, I was like, "He really can't read, can he?" And she told me that he couldn't. And I started asking questions about why he couldn't. And so she gave me a 1 or 2 sentence summary of those student walkout in Prince Edward County and then the closing of the schools. But she told me by the end of the summer I had a book report due. And so I remember completing that book report and going back to school that August and began asking questions because I had never learned that history in Prince Edward County Public Schools. And this was a place, the Mode Museum, I grew up 3 or 4 blocks away. And over time, we continuously heard, we should just move on. that these things don't matter. Like, to truly heal, we should just forget about those things because we're here in harmony now. And we really didn't begin to hear that story in Prince Edward County until the 50th anniversary of Brown in 2004. But something else happened when they opened the Motor Museum in Prince Edward County. And that place, despite what you're hearing in the news today and political rhetoric, when we started learning that history, it brought us closer together. And I had a teacher who was actually one of the students affected by the school closing in Prince Edward County. And I grew up reading her story. Her name is now Mrs. Shirley Eames, but she was Miss Shirley Davis. That's her maiden name. And you all may have heard that story, but she talked about going to the bus stop every single day, just waiting to be educated. So a few years back at the Motor Museum, Mrs. Eames and I had a conversation, and she shared with me that she had finally healed from the hurt and the pain of the closing of the schools in Prince Edward County. And I think when we talk about quote-unquote divisive concepts, I think we're just talking about history. And I'm afraid that if we don't learn from our history, we're going to repeat it. Next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Frank Callahan, who's the Education Committee Chair of the Henrico Branch in AACP.
Good morning. My goal in this little presentation is to guide you to various educational resources and organizations which will describe what equity needs of students enhance all students and debunks the zero-sum talking points that the governor is talking about. First of all, representing the NAACP, I'd like to say that we have been out there heavily criticizing the governor on many of his viewpoints. In fact, Amy Tillerson-Brown, who is the chair of the Virginia NAACP Education Committee, has issued a statement talking about none of the resources which the Secretary of Education has requested to rescind or modify are discriminatory and that they do not promote unjust or predatory treatment based on race or gender. So we have taken a very strong stand on that matter. And there have been other organizations which have given a lot of great information out there for this issue. For example, the African American Superintendent's Advisory Council issued recommendations on equity. They have issued a major report back in March of 2021 about all of about information, and I would suggest that if you need details on this, please go to the website where they have this information, because they did a deliberate, data-informed, and transparent discussion on this issue, not just a whim. And not only did the African American Superintendent do this, but other politicians did. And I'm going to read you a little quote from a politician, and then I'll tell you who said it. All Virginia students should have the opportunity to receive an excellent education that teaches all history, including the good and the bad. Yeah. Prioritize academic excellence and fosters equal opportunities for all students. Our Virginia students should not be taught to discriminate on the basis of sex, skin color, or religion. And the VDOE policy should certainly not recommend such concepts. And if you want to know who said that, it was Governor Youngkin. He was the one who presented that. And I wish that he would follow his own advice, because the Virginia Department of Education has put out an excellent 50-some page document talking about Virginia's roadmap to equity. And in that, they express tremendous amount of determination and to recognize its responsibility to advance racial, social, and economic equality in education throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. And they do want a partnership with the State Board of Education and the Virginia Secretary of Education. They have established our educational equitable priorities, advanced tools and resources to support local school districts. And I wish the present governor would follow those examples. And if you're confused, I would like to say, so am I. Because including from my own county, Lamont Bagley said that the governor, this is certainly not a promise kept. The Governor Youngkin stood on the steps of the Capitol and declared that our shared history must be taught. He immediately went behind closed doors and began his war on public history, starting with Executive Order 1. So, in conclusion, I'm confused too, but I go back to, I am a classroom teacher. I spent 35 years there. And I still remember my student teaching when my mentor sat down with me and said to me, "You've gone through 4 years of education and you have received what are the theories of education. Now I'm going to tell you the reality." And what he said to me was very plain and simple. In public education, remember that most all decisions are political ones made by politicians. And that is so true today in Richmond, Virginia in 2022. Thank you very much. I almost forgot to introduce the next speaker, and that is the Reverend Dr. Burke, who is Board Director at the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy and the Head of Social Justice for the Baptist General Convention of Virginia. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm here on behalf of the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy as a board member, also representing Baptist General Convention of Virginia, who serve 1,100 churches in Virginia. I'm here to stand with them and other organizations to condemn any efforts to turn back the clock by suggesting that there is no need now for telling the truth about who we are as a people. We stand against any efforts to dismantle the progress that's been made towards an inclusive society by those claiming that we must only teach a sanitized version of history. A sanitized version is simply one that does not reflect our reality as people living in this commonwealth or even in this nation. So we cannot condone any effort that would set us back. My memory of these efforts goes back to the 50s. It seems that we are trying to erase much of the progress that we thought we had made. During those early years, the desegregation of schools was often at the forefront. Then and now, our hope for an inclusive community, community, state, and nation has its greatest potential to come to fruition from our children when they are educated in an environment that has the potential to teach them how to live together, to value every person no matter their background, that if this nation is to be what it says it is and what it hopes to be now and in the future, it must provide a balanced education. Cannot do that without inclusiveness. If we're not allowed to have educators who are educated in an understanding of what it means to include everybody, to know enough about everyone, where they come from and all of that, and yet know that together we'll accomplish much if we just accept that the same one that created one created all, and that if we use together everything that's in us, we'll find that all of us together are indeed better than anyone. So we resist and stand against any effort to thwart equity or any other diversity and inclusion method. For we know that if we continue on this path, we'll find ourselves having the same conversation. Perhaps the worst of that is we will have raised another generation that will sit side by side and never really understand each other. If we are not careful, we will deprive ourselves of all the greatness that comes in the great variety of people that populate this earth. Those same people that come to Virginia and other places, bringing all the gifts within them. If we're not careful, we will lose all the beauty that humanity could be because we fail to include everybody and to value everybody, that all of us might indeed be one nation, united for the good of all.
Thank you for that, and good morning. My name is Amy Walters. I'm a senior attorney at the Legal Aid Justice Center in the Youth Justice Program there. We're proud to stand here today in support of a strong, equitable, high quality preschool through K-12 public education system. Our state constitution establishes the right to a high-quality education for all children throughout the Commonwealth. This constitutional language was written in direct response to mass resistance, Virginia's role in fighting desegregation, their attempt to block it. Then, and reinforced more recently, Virginia committed to building an education system that boldly and self-critically learned from its lived and living history while working toward teaching a more just future. That living history is reflected in the fact that zip code, race, and economic status are predictive of school readiness in rising kindergartners. It's reflected in the fact that a black male student with a disability is more than 20 times likely to get suspended than a white female student without a disability. And it's reflected in the disparities in achievement rates for third grade reading, SOLs, graduation rates, and advanced diplomas. These disparities will not be redressed by simply providing a one-size-fits-all education program. Repairing the harms of the past and forging a just future for all of our students requires structural change, an ongoing commitment from state and local government, from the governor's office to the principal's office. Also, it's not only a constitutional mandate to educate all children, but federal civil rights laws require states to actively address educational programming that results in large racial disparities. The U.S. Supreme Court has explained that even neutral policies that produce disparities by race is discriminatory if it perpetuates historical discrimination. In Virginia, the Office of Civil Rights has had to remind schools of their affirmative duty to protect students from racial discrimination and harassment over 25 times in the last 5 years. Our response should not just be, though, to do what the law requires. It's a responsibility to make sure students are thriving no matter their demographics. And we have made progress here through thoughtful, intentional equity programming and culturally responsive curricula. And while there's much more to do, the Board of Education has given us a roadmap on how to provide a high-quality education to every child in Virginia to meet their needs. These standards underscore the importance of an equitable system by providing appropriate staffing and programming, at-risk add-on increases, and teacher compensation. These standards of quality, what the board told us we need, this recipe has not been fully funded for decades. Another constitutional problem for the state, and also a significant contributing factor to the disparities we see today. High quality education is a universal, bipartisan goal of Virginians, but it can only happen in school buildings that are free from mold and decay, when teachers are valued and supported to the extent that they can reflect the communities that they're serving, and when we fulfill our constitutional duty to fully fund the standards of quality. And it can only happen when we recognize that we don't have to live in the past, but we have to live with it. Understanding the importance of living with and learning from our history is what gives the term high quality in our Constitution both its promise and its value. We want to thank our partners for standing here with us today, and now I'll turn it back over to Dr. Fetterman to close us out. Thank you.
Thank you for all of those valuable insights and perspectives. The recent actions by State Superintendent Jillian Barlow to set us on a path to remove all access to materials designated to assist local school divisions and educators with teaching in a culturally competent manner have alarmed many in the education community. While the Youngkin administration was unable to roll back the laws requiring culturally competent education in the Commonwealth, they nonetheless took the unilateral step to initiate the process to remove the materials produced and compiled over a number of years by education experts throughout our state. We believe that this is the wrong direction for our Commonwealth to go in. So I am proud, again, I am so proud to announce that today that the Virginia Education Association will now serve as a clearinghouse for the ed equity training materials and resources that could be eliminated from the Virginia Department of Education's website in the coming days. Any local association, educator, parent, or member of the public can go to our website at www.veanea.org right now and access the materials completely free of charge. We are doing this because we believe educators who can teach all of our students about all of our history is in the best interest of us all. Lastly, we all know the governor has called a special session of the General Assembly on April the 4th to complete the state budget for the next 2 years and to complete conference meetings on any bills. We urge the governor to keep his promise to increase public education funding, including raising teacher pay to the national average, funding vital school infrastructure, and raising basic aid to our local school divisions. I would like to thank all of you for being here today. We are happy to stand for questions at this time.
So we have the executive order, we have the report. Have you seen any of this actually affect classrooms yet?
I would say the effects of our classroom has further increased the level of fear that educators have about teaching truth to power, about teaching culturally competent lessons that have been vetted, tried, and true. Many educators are on edge that no matter what they teach, it's going to be reported to the snitch line. And as the president of our union, I want our parents to continue to report the great and amazing things that our educators are doing to mitigate the learning challenges that our students have experienced through COVID. Any follow-up? Please ask.
What do you want teachers to know that are, as you are saying, are being held back from teaching a lesson?
We want our teachers to do what they have gone to college to do. That is to teach our children. To teach our children that honest education is the best education to truly prepare them to be global thinkers in this ever-changing society. We want our teachers to know the students from the communities in which they come from so that we can prepare them to go into a greater society ready for whatever and whoever it is they desire to be. I'm fired up and ready to go. Yes, sir.
With the pushback on divisive concepts and equity training, is there any concern from the VEA with the Board of Education's upcoming review and revision of the standards of learning for history?
We're going to continue to attend those meetings, and we're going to continue to push our agenda that that our educators need to know that culturally competent pedagogy is alive and well, and we want them to continue to institute whatever policies, regulations that will allow that to stay as a part of what we do to become great and amazing educators, the type of educators that our parents should expect our children to be taught by. Yes.
Is there any feeling among teachers and leaders like yourself that the executive order and all of this talk might just be sort of like smoke and mirrors and that it really has no teeth?
Oh, absolutely. So what I believe the governor has done is created his orders from a select group, which is the select minority, to give direction for the collective majority. And we're not going to stand by idly and allow that to happen. We're going to continue to show up, speak up, and we're going to continue to speak truth to power. And we will be the loudest voice in the room, speaking the truth each and every time we have an opportunity to speak. Absolutely.
I would say, though, that the interim report from BDOE, there are real effects from cutting, that the state has a role in providing educational materials, guidance, programming to all the localities. And by removing the equity programming, math initiatives, they're sending a message to localities about what Virginia stands for, contradictory to the pedagogy that we've heard today and what Virginians hold to be true, which is that all children deserve a high quality education, to deserve to receive the tools they need to be successful. Thank you.
So again, I would like to thank everybody for taking the time to join us today. And again, for those that are listening or watching, continue to visit us at www.veanea.org, or you may call us at 1-800-552-9554. My name is James Fetterman, the proud president of the Virginia Education Association. Thank you all.